find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening mine.
Happy Holy Day, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, and awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, I'm pleased to present to you our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey, as he presents Moabitess, Shame of the Fall, Glory of the Rise. But before he begins, please be sure to like, share, and if you have not already done so, subscribe to our channel. Now let's receive our Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Bey.
Islam, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Vadimakum. I want to share a new book. How old is this book now? She just recently
About 2
published
weeks.
this book. Yes.
2 weeks.
Yeah. Mother Callie Sitchin Eel, and I want you all to get a good look at it so you recognize it when you see it. Is that clear in the camera?
Yeah, but I'm going to put up something. Yeah, else where
Take a screenshot.
and I'm going to put this up. There you go, where they can get it. Global Transformations. There we are.
All right. Now, and it's really timely because these things we've been discussing lately, and also with the politically appointed time for revealing to the general public the what you might say public view or public awareness of the alleged forming or the alleged death of Queen of the German Queen operating at England, etc., known as Queen Elizabeth, which logically has created quite a stir on the political realm around the world, and due to hybrid European colonial operations, and also due to many who really have limited knowledge of the real history and the deeds done by the German Queen operating at the UK. And it's timely because we also need to make reference to the reality that many who really know the history know that much of what has been presented to the masses is both in the nature of substitute, imposterism, and impersonation, etc. And that is the fact. And so we're going to share a little bit of information with you on some of our older lessons dealing with women and government. And this is one of the flyers from years ago that's derived from lesson book number 9, the applied science of the number 9. And many of you may have seen the poster of the cover of the book that has been passed around for quite a few years with a golden background. And what we're really discussing right now is some of the things that people have been dancing around or uncomfortable to speak about, and some of the things that are more uplifting relative to the rise of the Moabitess, etc. Because so much time has been spent with in scholarship as well as in anthropology and history, denigrating the Moabitess, which is one of the reasons why, particularly the contemporary hybrid Europeans will never refer to her directly because of the principle of linguistic power or the power of the word. So they will never call her the Moabitess. They will say things like the black Madonna, the black Negro Oi Queen type thing. But they will sorely and dedicatedly avoid saying the Moabitess because of the projection of the energy that comes with that. And so when you hear terms among the scholars, the black queens of Egypt, the black Phoenician queens of North Central South America, the black ruler, empress, Hagar, and stuff like that. When you hear them use those terms, it's because they're avoiding the uplifting of the Moabitess, who is the real and rightful heir queen of Sheba, i.e., which is also a term used for the earth. So the queen of Sheba is actually the Moabitess. And so you will see in all the cultures around the world where they'll use these different words, even Diana. Most people don't know that Diana, Sheba, Venus, Astarte, all it's the same thing. Isis, etc. Now, because of the different names or attributes that have been given to the Moabitess, people have been over the, particularly the last century or so, when the hybrid Europeans have been more control of the narrative. Most of the people who are descendants of those ancient ones will pick up the terms that were created by the hybrid Europeans and the terms that were created by the Asiatic and African scholars who have been taught by them, who have been trained to dance like happy clowns around truth in the name of uplifting our people. So you'll hear them say terms like, again, the Black Madonna, and they will never call her who she is. They'll say the melanated people, things, all these terms which are contemporary, but they're actually condescending. And most people won't admit to that, but I'm just telling you, any term like that is absolutely condescending. You'll not hear me play those games of dishonor to our ancestors. However, the time has come that those games that have been played over these centuries will no longer hold power over the people. And the hybrid Europeans who have promoted those nomenclatures and those nom de guerre in order to bury the history, and also to psychologically and from a dimensional spirit realm continue to degrade her, while at the same time in all of their rituals using symbolisms of her and imageries of her in their worships, whether you're dealing with the chambers at the Vatican or your cathedral churches around the world, etc., while not doing it publicly, and also in their rituals in their secret societies, referencing Ruth the Moabitess, the great grandmother of Yeshua, who they tag as Jesus, which is a password, to hide the history of the ancient Moabites and Canaanites, who are actually the true heirs of the land of the West, etc., or what you would call Equipta or Egypt, etc., and also the motives as to why they have been hiding from the world the reality that North, Central, South America is really Atlantis. And also Egypt. Well, Egypt is a cover term for Equipta. And this is another reason why the hybrid Europeans controlled from the foot soldiers, Fleet Street, England, and the Vatican have, by rule of color of law and color of authority, denied access of the people of the land to the areas of Egypt, which we know is the Grand Canyon. And also hiding, they created an institution that they call the Smithsonian. Their job is to hide all of the old and ancient Egyptian, i.e. Phoenician, i.e. Sumerian artifacts that are well over 500,000 years old that are at North America and that have been hidden in Washington at the Smithsonian on the floors, underground floors and halls and tunnels. And that's their major job, is to disconnect or cut Egypt off from Africa. And the psychology of that more or less recent historical admission would imply to most of the people the geographical territory of Hikuta or Egypt near Morocco, Sudan, etc. And so the concept of mind in the geographical sense of the word or phrase, most people think when they're talking about separating Egypt from Africa, the mind goes to the geography of the Mappa Mundi as shown to the world on the east side of the water. But the real Masonic truth about the separating Egypt from Africa is the hiding of the history that America is Egypt, and to separate it both in the minds of the people and in the geography and in nature of the soils and in the historical fact dealing with what they refer to as the continental shift or the cocoa plate shift, to disconnect the Aboriginal, Asiatics, etc. at North America from the true history of the human family that goes far beyond and more ancient than what you know today as so-called Egypt, and the concept that are presented to the masses of Egypt in the concept of the pyramids being propagated and the rulers and the pharaohs, and that is used as a basis when they know that it goes far beyond even that. And so this is why it has been necessary for the hybrid Europeans to create or to maintain institutions like the Smithsonian in order, whenever any artifacts that are dug up at North America, and keep in mind, and for those of you who have been doing some archaeological studies and anthropological studies, you'll know that many of the caves and tunnels where a lot of the artifacts have been found and are known to be found also is in what we know here as Little Egypt. As you'll see in the early newspapers here in North America, they refer to the Tennessee area and Kentucky area as Lower Egypt. And most of your natural cave systems, some of which have their own atmosphere and lakes, etc. In Kentucky, that's your largest area of many of your ancient tunnels, and many of your ancient artifacts which were found there and have been found there and in recent months have been found and have been covered up. However, you have a few scholars who are battling as we speak to reveal the truth about Kentucky area and the Egyptian artifacts that have been found there over the decades and have been hidden. And you have a few who are battling, trying to get some of that information out now as we speak. So as you all are doing some of your research, start looking up Egyptian artifacts in Kentucky area and the cover-up. And so a lot of that information, while being suppressed in mainstream media, is well known among scholars. And so also in up around Chicago area and the Great Lakes, also recently they found more artifacts that go far beyond what, a couple of hundred centuries pre so-called biblical era, etc. And this is also has been one of the reasons why the hybrid Europeans have, in this recent century, particularly since the 1800s, have consistently tried to separate the consciousness of the people here from the land by superimposing what they refer to as the Indian paradigm, in order to disconnect the people from the Naga, Shakuns, etc., who have an ancient history here, who are actually the Aboriginal people. And also, for those of you who have been doing some research, you will find that world scholars have admitted, and this is most recently, that the most ancient people of the Americas are the Asiatic Phoenician people, who have been tagged as Negroes and Blacks and Indians, and that they are the most ancient people, not just here, but around the planet. In the other issue that's being brought to bear in anthropological scholarship is the fact that the concepts that the people keep looking at the North, Central, South America, and Americana as a so-called New World, the evidence shows that it's actually the Old World. So a lot of things are going to be turned over, and that will be happening in the next few months and this coming year by many of you who have been doing any serious scholarship. At the same time, look at this, the reality of the politics when they have presented to the world that the Germanic queen, who's been ruling at the United Kingdom, that they're having services for her transformation, that she transformed, and so they'll call it death, etc. But those who really know that she has relieved of that avatar at least the last couple of years minimally, and some say as early as 2012. But we know at least a couple of years, etc., by the Gregorian calendar. We know that much. And so much of what you see going on right now relative to the death of the imposter queen is for public amelioration. It's for modifying the impact that it makes on the general public, who have been subjected to the unum sanctum operations and hold her dearly as their political mother, while not knowing the real history that's behind it. And so, out of respect, logically, out of respect for the blind caring and concern of many of the masses who have been under the spell, I would not condemn them because they don't know the history. They don't know the real politics. But also, I would say this: when the hybrid Europeans on their political platform have exposed to the general public that the German queen has passed form, that look at that as a signal. It has to be taken as a signal from among themselves for something else to be rolled out, because all politicians know that the avatar for that energy has been going a couple of years. and anyone or any being that had been presented to the public in the last few years, presented as her, was not that physical avatar, was not at all. But we won't argue that. It'll be coming out this year anyway, because they can't hide it anymore. However, the position of the German Queen of the United Kingdom is a substitute position for the Moabitess, which is why all of the culture of the operations, even the ceremonies, etc., and the monarchy, etc., is really a substitute for the great Moabitess. Now, that's a fact. And so all of the traditions and the symbolism that would and have been used by them in all of their operations are, in fact, Babylonian. And while they've been using dark magic, etc., it is important for the people to be aware of that, because a lot of the African culture that has been used by them to rule the world in a corrupt manner has been charged against actually the ancient Moabite Canaanites, who actually are not the people that have done all this injury around the planet. And this is again why a lot of people, when they begin to get some information on the secret societies that have been operative around the world, one of the negatives that are presented to the people is the Egyptians or people of Phoenician pedigree and bloodline are being charged for the evils that are actually have been done by hybrid Europeans who have been wearing the crowns of the ancient Canaanites, Moabites, as a symbol of conquest. And therefore, when the people see these symbols of conquest, etc., they charge the symbols or the Aboriginal people, who are really the heirs to all of this symbology and artifacts, as being the evil demons, when it's actually been the hybrid Europeans who have been imitating and substituting. So I wanted to put that in perspective as we go on with this conversation. Yes, Doc.
I just wanted to add, just on what you're saying, to add to that. You know, in Christendom, anything with the "ite" on the end of it was what do you call it, demonized, if you will, or given a negative. Like you said, the Hittites, the Canaanites, the Amorites, anything that had an "ite" on it. In so if you try to talk to somebody who has a biblical background, they would reject. I'm not a Canaan,
and they would,
because that's the way it's been presented.
Yes. Now, and then look at what you're saying, and let's look at that and let's work with that. Let's look at, say, as an example, in Septuaginta. Well, let's deal with what most people have been exposed to, right?
Right.
Say the Bible, right? And actually, I had a conversation with people that stopped me today, which I'll talk to you later about. But the deal is, let's look at most people when they look at what they have been told is Christianity, right? And most of and people, even people who are not in what you would call the practice of Christian theology as a creed operations, as the people would call religions. They may be what you call Hebrew, they'll say Hebrew, they'll say Jew, they'll say Muslim, some will say Muslim, some will say Confucian, etc. When the reality is, while all of these philosophies can be traced back to the same Phoenicians, and because all the culture around the world, keep this in mind, while not admitted by the scholars on the surface, it is known that all those so-called religious cultures from around the world are all Babylonian, all of it. So don't get self-righteous, due to the dogma systems that have been introduced in the name of religion and have been used actually to suppress humanity, distinguished from the Hermetic philosophies and the maxims of law of culture that originated in the fundamental philosophy, much of which has been condemned due to the evils that has been done by hybrid Europeans around the world using Babylonian culture and symbolism as a front that did not originate with them. And I think it's very important for people to keep that in mind, because we're in a state of situation on the planet and the evolution of humanity at this time, and the ascensions that are taking place with a lot of people who are experiencing ascension, dimensional ascension, to be able to apply more discernment, being cognate of the fact that demonism has been projected on symbolism that does not have demonism as its root. And much of it has been because the hybrid Europeans knew that the day will come that the people begin to wake up, and also according to nature. So we're not just talking to relative to political knowledge dispensation that has been buried and things which have been revealed. You're also dealing with the actual energy cycles, as most of you know, that Midgard has gone through the Futon belt. Many of you already know that, and so you have a different energy that's on the planet. And so by nature, humanity on this particular plane are ascending, although at different rates for different people. The numbers of ascension are increasing. And so those who really know the workings of nature, and that is the priesthood, even if they're the dark priesthood, know that that's a dangerous time for them, because all things will be exposed, which means it's sort of like where the Bible refers to there shall be no stone unturned. And so that's in reference to the operations of nature, distinguished from the political operations of the priesthood, who have been well in control of the mental state of the people for the last 1,000 or more years, relative to their capacity to alter the books, to eliminate certain books from the availability or the access to the common people, etc., and also by maintaining secret societies for themselves, and then wearing the crowns of the true heirs in order to claim sovereignty divine that never belonged to them, and also that whatever cruelties that they committed in the names of the different god systems that were projected upon the world, that when the people would see the symbols or the crown, they would charge the original aboriginal people, when it actually comes from the imposter hybrids, etc. And keep in mind, this has much to do with all of the wars that have been taking place in the modern era. And when I say modern, I'm still talking even as late as say the battle of Poitiers, near Poitiers, France, etc. Battle of Tours, the battles even with Hasdrubal and Hannibal, Barker Bay, etc. The battles with the king of Tyre, etc., and his daughter, Queen Dodo, even the takeover of Iberia, which is Dodo's land area, which you know today as Scotland, Ireland, what you know as Europe. All of that was Queen Dodo's land. And so to hide the history, they had to rewrite and separate Egypt from the concept that the people have that Egypt is this large country just above Sudan on East Amexem that we call Kemet, Africa today, etc. geographically, in order to separate also not just America, i.e. Atlantis, but also to separate Iberia. And this is why when you deal with a lot of scholars, they will not make a direct correlation in the minds of the people when teaching them geography i.e. Iberia, Iberian, Iberia, and Europe being one and the same, in that it is only called Europe now after the takeover. So that's important to keep that in mind. And it's important to keep in mind with that same concept of thought in both geography, anthropology, that why they do not allow any access to the mainstream people of the land access to the Grand Canyon, and the fact that also why they blocked off a lot of the natural caves in Kentucky, why they sealed off many channel accesses on mountainsides, etc., literally that people have not known existed. And they have a problem now with a couple of places around North America and in other areas where, because of the minor earthquakes that have taken place, that you can check out on registry, that have opened up or knocked off sealed areas of mountains that people were not aware that actually had passageways. So they got to cover all that up too. That's happening now as we speak. Nevertheless, let's look at this from a metaphysical and a divine perspective. Even though we know that the German queen of the Germanic tribes passed form actually a few years back, we also know that that's a signal, the notification to the public at this time, which would be late, which would be off what you would call time cycle, is a message that that there's multiple timelines that are being taken in consideration as we move forward in the political operations of the world. So you already know that everything that is done by the hybrid Europeans of the Germanic tribes in the substitute venue would be artificial. So these are the things that you're going to be dealing with. Mainly that they're going to start exposing to you in dripping out to you. And it's an ancient argument. Not so much an argument, but dealing with the ancient wars of which she is actually present queen of in those operations on the surface. AI, what you call artificial intelligence, which is not new, it's actually old. The fact that the search for Atlantis is an artificial argument because they already knew and always knew that it's actually America. The old statement made by historians, geologists, etc., anthropologists relative to separating Egypt from Africa is the reality that they're separating America from Africa or Phoenicia or what you would call Sumeria. And all of the old tablets of both gold and brass and copper that have many of them which have been displayed in the British Museum and in the some of your recent museums in Egypt on the other side of the water actually originated from North America. That's going to be exposed to you too. So when you look at the fact that they're now telling you about this queen, this German queen, they won't say she's German. I know she's German. So I'm telling you. So they're exposing the alleged transformation of the German queen. That means that's a signal among them, because remember, they're battling over our estate. Keep that in mind. They're still battling over our estate. That's a signal that it is known that other things are being brought forth that's going to expose not just the history of Egypt of the West or Maghreb of the West, but expose the truth that all of what they've been giving to humanity in these last few hundred years in particular, all is a lie based on fraud, and everything is proxy. So I want you to look up the word proxy and keep in mind when you're dealing with all the different nation states and the wars that have been going on, all of them have been proxy wars. And one of the things that the hybrids have done is that they've always used the identities of others to do their dirty work, which is another reason why it's been difficult to give what you will call true chronology of the walk of man to the average everyday man and woman and have it make sense to them, because it doesn't make sense once they even start thinking a little bit. And so a lot of the people just simply shut down and just accept what they're told because they're given what is known as collage degrees that they pay for in the name of education to have a place in the social structure and to get compensated with the private commercial paper of the Jesuits known as the US dollar, etc., which is also why they have not taught the people that the US is a private corporation. And that includes that false proxy operations of people even thinking for all these years that the corporation operation of the Vatican was a country that is actually occupying Atlantis or America. So when you're looking at the America, you're looking at Maroccan. So American is actually the ancient Moabites, Moors, i.e. with the great superdevere of Egypt, or the dividing of the land between Ham and Cush, which is a well-known fact. That's known. However, the details of the great superdevere is not discussed among the scholars because it kills the contemporary operations of the mind control systems of artificial interjection referred to as the so-called Black African diaspora, which is a total fiction. But that is necessary from a political area to dissuade any of the people of the land to acknowledge their connection to the land and thus have any state of mind that would create a vibration that connects to the land, because then you would also have what or reconnect a spiritual connection, and the people would begin to not only recognize that the current history of the people has been corrupted, but that the entire history of the walk of man has been corrupted, going back millennia, not just actually a couple hundred years. So when people are looking at, say, what they call colonial operations, the general concept would be a couple hundred years based on the unum sanctum doctrine of discovery operations under the quote-unquote story of Christopher Columbus and Amerigo's Vespucci, as an example, sailing from the Moorish city of Cadiz to the land of the Moors, and then calling the land of the Moors America after Amerigo's Vespucci, when actually that's the taking on American as a crown of conquest, not the name of Scipio. However, the scholarship presents that America was named after Scipio Africanus. Real scholars know that's bullshit.
Africa or?
Yeah, Africa. Yes, that whole idea. You know, because America and Africa are actually dialectical twists. Still, and deal with anybody that really knows etymology. And when you say American, you're still saying African. But you won't argue with these people because most of them can't read. But that's not the point. I'm just presenting that to you. Because actually, we're dealing on multiple levels right now, because we're also dealing with a dark priesthood who are accelerating their activities against humanity because they know that they're being exposed, and they know that they can't maintain power among the people on the planet if the people don't believe in them. So it has been a political necessity for them to reconstruct history. However, to the degree that they admit upon discovery of some of the corruption and alteration, that is safe for them because they don't want the people to know that it goes back actually farther than that. And then you start dealing with what is starting to be revealed to the people, the dimensional timelines, and also off-world operations. And then you start dealing with what they call those NASA signs out there on the plains of the West and in the caves of Massachusetts and Jersey and New York and etc. And you start seeing that, which is coming out to you, that our communications with other humanoids in this solar system and outside the solar system is as normal as you're going to get say some popcorn and soda at the store. It's just that the people aren't used to it now because they've been under the spell for the last a few thousand years. Well, not a few thousand, maybe say 1200 in that area, controlled by the popes of Rome, and it has been mostly more suppressed in the last, say, 200 years. And so the people have been like totally asleep. And so a lot of times when our people think about they're doing some research to find their so-called Black history, that is only a crack in the eggshell. That is really juvenile and minor. And it's going to be quite uncomfortable for people not only to find out that that's minor in their experience, but that this thing goes farther than deeper than deep. However, on another level, so now we're dealing with what we call the dimensional spirit realm, or what is known as planes of life. Contrary to all the intentions of all of the dark priesthood and the hybrid Europeans who have been ruling the planet for these particularly, so I'm dealing with the last maybe 500, just to be stay in the area where people are willing to handle it or willing to look at this. So I won't go into we won't go into say the operations necessarily of the reptilian operations and the different levels of them, or the grays and things like that, which we all know about. That's old hat. Let's look at more or less the AI operations that are actually ancient, that the people have been in the state of mind that this is some kind of new thing. And this has much to do with why, particularly in the last few decades, that the hybrid Europeans have been desperately pushing mechanisms, operations, not unlike your cell phone operations, even a lot of this technology that we're using now, etc. And pushing even for trade to be done with AI, and they'll call it transhumanism. And the real deal of it is that the transhumanism operations has to do with trying to take or use the powers of technology to create life forms and then transfer the energies of the monad, or what often referred to as the soul, and the problems that they've been having in that area, which we won't get into right now. That's just, I'm throwing it out there for those of you who are a little more advanced or adeptus and know that the history or the walk of man is deeper than the most of the people have been aware of. I'm just choosing consciously to deal more with the surface area, because common sense and intelligence presents that the average person or natural being who have been under the spell of Rome for these last few centuries are not usually in the state of mind to handle the more, though common but less known, exercises of the walk of man, nor the dimensional state of being with them, although that information is being filtered to come out to the masses on a larger scale, even as we speak. I always chose to take the position of where and how can we be most effective in aiding or assisting our people, i.e., and humanity at large, to begin to shed the negative energy operations of, the unum sanctum and dum diversus operations, which has pretty much stagnated people. Because you already know that if you can't break that shell of mysticism that has been operating to the detriment of humanity, particularly in these last couple hundred years, perpetrated by the priesthood, who the people have trusted, not knowing that among the priesthood is your major demons, and they have been charging everyone else as being a demon. And so this has been one of their power plays. So it is important to recognize that one of the facts of the evolutionary facts and timeline shifts that are necessary for the redemption of humanity at Midgard is that the true queen of Earth, or Queen Sheba, i.e. Earth, must be restored to her rightful place, but not from a subjective point of view, but from an actuality, because it can only be done with her own consciousness, because that's the reality. But if you look at the sociology operative at Midgard for, say, the last couple centuries, you'll see mainly, I would say, the last, say, 90 years, not century. Because even though the attack has been made on the Moabitess, for millennia, actually, that got us to this fall. And has been more her adaptation or her acceptance of the dogma systems set forth by the priesthood that created the fall. And so, as an example, and I was talking to a young sister actually today on my way down here, because she was asking me, do I want to sign some paper to vote? They got them people placed all around Philadelphia area with clipboards getting people to sign up to vote. And I said no. She asked me why, but I was in a hurry to come down here. And I presented to her some of the information, like the Act of Congress, 1871, which I told her to look up, and things like that. But the reality, one of the reasons I stopped to talk is because it was a sister. Not that I was ignoring the brother who was with her. It was a brother with her too, who was asking me too. Because I also know that until women are ready to really take their place without that subjugated mind, or that someone's doing them a favor, etc., by acknowledging them, until they go beyond that, the damage remains, because they must reconnect spiritually with their actual self. And so I chose to take a snippet from an old lesson, and many of you maybe 10, 15 years ago may have that excerpt, because we used to do these flyers and share some of the snippets from the lesson books. And so I'll share this a little bit. Woman and the Ancient Matriarchy. And this is a snippet from the Applied Science of the Number 9 from the Moorish American Heritage Series, lesson book number 9. Woman in Government. This is authored by myself, etc. Down through the ages and throughout the ancient halls of learning, a timeless phrase has been taught, has been spoken of, and has been written upon walls of stone, written on tablets of stone, and upon parchments and papyrus scrolls, and upon the hearts and the minds of humanity. Man, know thyself. A lack of knowledge about the ancient history of civilization and the social orders established upon the earth planet Midgard disentitles one of a clear understanding and knowledge of the present day social economic imbalances and the veiled social political motives of arrogant rulers exploiting conquerors and untoward scholars. However, such vanity and selfishness need not be the fate of humanity. Truth always awaits nearby for rediscovery. And there are certain undeniable truths and reality in life that verify the manifestations and functionalities involving the human experience upon the earth planet, which cannot be intelligently ignored nor denied. Reality bears her face with instructional splendor when or if one seeks clarity, seeks honesty, and true resolution to the myriad intersocial problems now plaguing the world. However, if one attends to remedy the foresaid social ills, one may quickly discover that demonic defenders, quote unquote, of the corruptive den are just below the plausible surfaces of the feigned appearance of a peace-loving society. And there will be more than a mild protest or surprise to the actual causes of the den than one expected to expose, to uncover, or to find. Taboo. Taboo is an adjective which applies in general to an edict, a bull, or a public predication declaring a thing, a subject matter, etc., to be set aside, set apart, or consecrated to a special use or purpose. That which is designated taboo is restricted to the special use, knowledge, or prerogative of a god, a king, a priest, an adept, a chieftain, etc. Taboo subjects and matters are forbidden to general use, restricted and prohibited to a particular class, especially to women, or to a particular person or persons. Taboo is held as inviolable, sacred, forbidden, unlawful, etc. And as for the public, classified under Index Librorum Prohibitorum and Index Librorum Expurgatorius. Theological intrigue and political subject matters have proven to be especially sensitive educational topics when one openly converses about non-placating resolutions to these enigmas. A revisit through the heart and through the mind to the ancient isonomy governmental principles of our ancient Moabite Moorish mothers and fathers reveals serious violations against law, against order, and against governmental principles. Observe the contradictions which have contributed greatly to our presently disrupted pursuit of happiness. If one displays even a simulacrum of courage and dares to question the presiding religious and political hypocrisy concerning the commonly paraded self-righteous attitudes and inequality practices, some people become immediately and arrogantly and unnecessarily defensive. And such pompousness and vanity can be easily recognized and understood when it comes to revealing truths about Inquisition history or about discussing the ancient superior social status of Asiatic African women in ancient civilization governing the North American territory i.e. North Gate. One cannot and will not understand or properly analyze the foul social, economic, and political imbalances imposed upon North America's natural peoples if one has no knowledge of the lecherous Inquisition philosophy and about the anti-humane psychology and psychic attacks, which are the seeds and fertilizers of our present social, spiritual, economic, and political disorders. With glances into the mirrors of the mind, let us travel, if only a little, through the halls of our ancient Moabite chronicles. When the Moors began to adopt and to accept the alien and vague idol god worship systems of the Inquisitionists from Europe, the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed, the Moors began to fall quickly into disorder, naivety, divisions, self-hatred, ignorance, and poverty. Many who converted to Christendom and adopted the practice of denying a consanguine relationship to their own blood and forefathers have been referred to by the Christian conquerors and Inquisitionists as Moriscos, being Moors in denial, and the same goes so-called Moriscos are today referred to as Negroes, Blacks, Coloreds, and Indians. And there are so many volumes of text to study and to examine about the Inquisition and about the Inquisitionists that no single book or writ could do the subject matter justice. Their demonic deeds, their philosophies, and their effects were so encompassing and destructive that no single writer or historian could ever do the subject matter justice. Neither can the human family ever be fairly compensated for the evils perpetrated against the living and against the unborn by the hands and the minds of such monsters of darkness and their helpers. One of the most successful psychic attacks, quote unquote, ever devised and perpetrated against humanity and against the civilized world was the false, malicious, vile, atrocious, and banal act of attaching the name Jesus to the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed. And this deception was devised to effectively give fictional public sanction to Roman Christendom, solidifying it as legitimate to the truth during the Byzantine era. The Nicene Creed was actually authorized by the great Roman Emperor Constantine. Now, Constantine, for those of you who will do some research, Emperor Constantine, Flavius Valerius, Aurelius Constantinus, AD 280 to 337 era, is sometimes referred to in history as Constantine the Great. He was born of a Gothic tribe at the land or area known as Moesia, which is geographically located at what is now called Bulgaria and Serbia. The Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed. The Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed is pseudo-religious, and its pseudo-religious priests, their assigned and ordained leaders, and other clubism type persons have taken for themselves, quote unquote, world titles of authority, also referred to as world titles of nobility. More often than not, these people and persons have projected asinine and arrogant explanations as to what their exclusive and specialized versions of a god wants and desires for everyone else. And this is a practical diversion and a practiced diversion, which is forwarded in order for them to justify the many unresolved social injustices. Of course, there is always a monetary price included. And while these self-righteous deity titled persons are rarely put to stern or substantive questioning, even a child would recognize many of their pompous, pacifying, divertive, and yet empty proclamations as being not more than nearly neatly packaged royal maggot dung. And those of us who know a little about true world history, ancient scripts, and about the worldwide Inquisition and pseudo-religion are not engaged in naivety and can easily see through the farce. We, being aboriginal to the land and having been made conscious, having knowledge about the veiled secrets and truth about the occupation of the Western Hemisphere, and thus why women have been minimized within and without occupied North American society. And the precepts of suppressing the Asiatic African woman emanates from the deviant anti-matriarchal and pseudo-religious foreign Inquisition customs, which have been rooted within North America's social order by the Union State Society members. The Union State Society is an organizationally abbreviated as the U.S. democracy, which is a body politic, which is a contemporarily founded body of corporations feigning as legitimate government at North America. Any open conversations or discussions which allude to a positive light about women and about the ancient matriarchy have been and is one of those social taboo subjects which are shunned on a major scale at most all social, religious, and political levels. The fact remains, in light of such aberrations, that North America and the true natural peoples and inhabitants thereof have been held under alien, crusade, colonial European domination for the last few centuries. And thus, the advent of the Union State Society, patriarchal, occupational colonialism, and its colorable U.S. government policies. And by Roman papal canon rules of law, the true history about ancient world civilizations, ancient science, astrology, cosmology, and a woman was and is suppressed by the pretentious impostors. And their oppression policies are embodied and reflected within the colored, quote unquote, and fixed black codes, Inquisition insights. And it becomes pertinent at this time to relate to a few points in world history concerning the Inquisition. And this will give the reader some insights into the modern day social politics, which are often misrepresented as racism and has undeniable or identifiable characteristics unique to a twisted slave culture as the one bred in North America, demos and democracy. Why is it that the hybrid Europeans who now occupy North America and control the seats of government constantly chant the phrase, our democracy, at every opportunity when addressing the public? And this political phrase implies what is known as white supremacy, exclusivity, and feudal military powers. And the interjecting of and about the chanting of the word democracy and has been mythically instructed to the masses and invoked by the demos politicians or demos politicos, hoovering over the seats of government, and thus the usurpation and the usurped political power in North America. And this psychosis is practiced in order to imprint the foreign Greek word demo upon the minds of the misgoverned natural peoples, and that democracy is the political code word or password used by the Roman European colonists who are occupying a land which is not their own, to spool Their social, political, military activities and covert operations over the northwest of Mexican North American territories and over the natural peoples. Note that the demo claims are made under a feigned claim of an unspecified, vague, and so-called American national citizenship. And this polarized demo chant was and is involved for mass mental grooming to imbue the acceptance of the displacement of the original organic republic form of government. Democracy demos uncovered and exposed is the hypocritical and deceitful political subversion code method for Roman political rulership in the extreme West. And this little studied and misrepresented political system was formed to economically displace the natural peoples of the land and to place them under the secured protections and immunities of organized constitutional government. And this allows and sets the stage for the demos to steal the legitimate seats of the republic government democracy chant. And this democracy chant is done in order for the subverting anti-constitutional political parties to dominate the administrative law powers and to colorably rule, with limited examination of organic law or with little or no civil contention coming from a non-thinking, non-reading, and pacified populace. Democracy is derived from the old Greek word demos and deme, often personified, which refers to the people of commons of an ancient Greek state. Hence, the personified political body politic of the occupying forces of hybrid European crusaders and inquisitionists in association and through enslavement and deception conquering and occupying the Western Hemisphere. And thus, this little snippet taken from the lesson book is to encourage the sisters who are, the women who are ready to actually start dealing with the actual politics, to turn on your divine energy, because that's when nature really begins to rescue us with honor and sincerity, going into the nature of yourself and shedding Rome. And so when the statement is made in the Bible, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, give the demo system back to Caesar and claim your divine feminine energy. Dr. G, would you like to share some with us from Mother Callie's book, if you please?
I certainly would. I hope everybody can hear me. I'm sorry, I'm choking a little bit in the background, but I'm going to put the banner up for her book, because I really wanted, to talk about the fact that we have something going on where a lot of sisters, we don't quite have 100 sisters yet, Sheik, but a lot of sisters have sent in their information wanting to be on the list called The War. And you just said it. The war stands for women are ready, right? And one of the required readings is actually this book that just came out, that Mama Callie. If you all don't know who Mama Callie Sitchin is, then you need to look at my last Tuesday's broadcast, and she was my guest. But I want to read a little bit of this that's in the book, and I'm gonna just jump around in this section, but it's Queen Mother awakens her daughter, teaching the ancient ways. It says, the message prophesied that the world can be and will be rescued from complete destruction by the women in the African and Aboriginal diaspora who are born outside of the African continent. Hence, mothers in the diaspora are destined to lead the way to salvation. Our responsibility is to save ourselves and our children first. There is a calculated program to take our sons and grandsons away from us. I'm jumping around. Much of it has to do, and I'm jumping around. Much of it has to do with the psychosis that we must develop to live under the apartheid government of America. We tell ourselves all the time that we must stop blaming the quote unquote white man and look at our own faults. This is like saying that one can live in an ecosystem and not be influenced by it. We know that our environment plays a major role in our development. Hence, to say that American apartheid does not influence the outcome of our life is just wishful thinking. Maybe what we need, and this is what we're doing, is a think tank of American Aboriginal women, real Aboriginal women, and true Aboriginal women. What I mean by this is that we need to form a think tank of women who are not in the mold of Condoleezza Rice or Kamala Harris, who are trying hard to be like somebody else. We need a Barbara Jordan, a Sojourner Truth, and a Fannie Lou Hamer, women who know who they were and who would face any danger on the road to liberation. We need to sit down and look at ourselves and decide in which direction we want our people to travel. We have no guidelines now, no roadmap, and no parameters. We just follow the lead of massa. It's and then she says, it is time for the American Aboriginal women to step up, take over our future. We have followed the Euro-American, Arabic, patriarchal, Judeo-Christian, Islamic model, and we see that it has not where it has gotten us. That is deeper. That is in a deeper cesspool. The model is not working for them either, because if we examine the state of societies in these nations they are in, as much social turmoil as the African societies and American societies. The only advantage they have over us is that they are living at a higher level of materialism, but in the same cesspool. So why call all real Aboriginal American women to the forefront? The war. Let us declare war on the society that is destroying our sons, our men, and let us lead them into another direction. It is tradition in Aboriginal societies that when things get so terrible, the women call for war. Yes, it will be an arduous and dauntless journey, but what else do we have to do for the rest of our lives? I have nothing else to do but to liberate my grandsons, my granddaughters, and to try to talk to the men. Well, the men can be very stubborn, and sometimes they fail to act on their own best interests and the interests of the entire family and the entire race. Can I call a council of matriarchs? And this is what we're doing with the war. Mm-hmm. Can I call a council of Aboriginal women from Africa and the Aboriginal diaspora, women who are independent from social structure, retired or close to retirement, who can take the time to think through a strategy for our liberation? The blueprint has already been thought through by many of our great ones like Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Noble Drew Ali, and Amos Wilson. All we have to do is to bring these strategies into the 21st century, put an Aboriginal feminine touch on them, and tune them to Mother Nature. Yes, then move. Let us plan to come together as soon as possible. When can we meet? It is obvious that we are all so busy in survival mode, but we can't neglect the fact that it is very urgent that we move. Let the Aboriginal women, female war babies, and baby boomers place their mark on this earth before we rest. After all, it was our generation that caused the change in the 1960s. Apparently, our job is not complete. Therefore, let us change the world. Yes, change the world. Change the world. And that's just an excerpt from the book.
That sure is inspirational.
And,
good to hear.
Mama Callie is, 78 years young. Mm-hmm. And her mind is sharp as a tack. And she, is aware of what's going on and is ready and willing and has put out this, that book. And not just the women. I think the men should get this book too.
That is sure refreshing.
Yes.
Because, particularly in recent years and decades, you mostly hear the sons speaking like that, but most of them were speaking empty while they were speaking it.
Right.
Because it's sort of like going along to get along, making statements. They hear everybody making complaints, the victim mentality type thing, but no substance of action. If you get the point. Mm-hmm. No restoration of a state conversation. no cognizance that that their oppression was not attitude, but it was actually established policy by conquest, which would create two different sensibilities for how you would approach this. Meaning that if you look at the psychosis of the psychic attacks that have been presented as the norm of the thought pattern for the people who have been abused, they've been directed to always talk racism, attitude, opinion, never birthright, never lost the state, never restoration of a state.
Right.
Sound good, total diversion. And it's beautiful to have a mother come out and speak bluntly to the reality, not dance around it, and also encourage many of our other women to really start taking a real intelligent and honest position on the matters affecting us. Because everybody, it seems like so many people would pick up these cliche statements, but no function behind it, And also, many women would always take that what you call back of the room position, I say some supporting statements here or there, but nothing in the forefront, And it's high time, and I'm just proud and appreciative of Mother Callie, for stepping up, because that should give a lot of the young sisters coming up some encouragement, because they definitely need it.
Absolutely. And one of the things that Mama Callie explained to me, because she's an astrologer, also, is that we are in a period, like I put in your, we have a window of opportunity. We've been in sort of a astrological jubilee, and it's a period when, if at the end of this particular so-called year, the window closes. Now, we may not achieve all that we need to achieve, but what she said to me is that when it closes, we need to already be in the process of at least of doing what it is that we need
already be planted.
So we've let a lot of time go by since, and she has, it's a name for this astrological period we're in, and it escapes me. But what I do know is that it ends at the end of this so-called, end of the year. And we need to be about what we're going to be about, like now, like yesterday, in order to be found in the process, if you will, of making the change.
Because you're dealing ethereal, and this is where our people need to really have some cognizance of timeline, or what they thought timeline was. And knowing, where people will admit in philosophical statements that they're dimensional, but in their social and operative life, they don't reflect that they're cognate of the dimensional nature of these people, of themselves. And therefore, allowed ourselves to be more subject to the psychic attacks coming from the hybrid Europeans who have been controlling the narrative, the informational narrative. And in some sense, because of that negligence on our part, we both unintentionally and in some areas intentionally sacrificed our children mentally to the hybrid European psychic attacks, and then simply set that forth for the future, because still everything is based on seeding. And so that's very important. And this is the same reasoning that she's using in her statement, is the same reasoning that I had said, over the years, why certain things I did with the rich and stuff, when people were saying, don't, or the people don't understand this, is necessary for the people to get active, because the dark priesthood stay active. They're on a mission of genociding these people out, while we don't have the luxury of sitting back and, when I get ready, or when I feel like it, but right now I got to party, right now I got to do this church, mosque, synagogue type thing, and maybe let somebody else do the work and then we'll catch up. They don't understand that this cycle is up. And this is back to the point why it's important for people that are really spiritually connected to actually start communicating with these people, because these people are so used to procrastination and that Piscean energy, of belief systems, not knowing that had nothing to do with real spirituality. that had to do with mind control. And because the priesthood have associated with Muhammad and Jesus and Buddha, etc., that were these psychoses that were created by the priesthood, who are actually anti-Christ, if you would understand. But they used the Christ principle as a billboard, and everything was actually proxy, like we always said before. And this is one of the most important things for people to really look at, is to recognize that almost everything that has been presented to us in this modern era, modern couple centuries, has been done under proxy operations. This is why it's dangerous to really just loosely take sides. You've got to examine and recognize that while the masses have been kept ignorant, that those who have been ruling on an upper dimensional chess level concerning our estate and our affairs, which is also from a social divine perspective, while the nature of women and men who have been generated by conscious women, or what you call spiritually ascended women, while we have seers and prophets. That's why they came to try to clear up, or to bring in the timeline, or to bring those dimensional levels in the cognizance of the people who have been distracted by the priesthood, so they could be better able to see and make discernment. Because the general ascension or salvation of the beings have to come from within themselves, and they've been trained to keep looking outside of themselves. So it's important for people who have that insight, like Mother Callie, to write and to project in formats of communication for the people.
And the women in the as far as the church, and I'm not so sure about the mosque and synagogues, but definitely in the church, the women have by and large been the ones that have been always been drawn into. And as a result of being drawn into, and you know, we know what church and Sincerity and all that means. Once you get in, you can't get out, so to speak. You can, but we know that it has been to suppress natural abilities and to substitute, you know, various, like you said, external experiences for what really has happened from an inside job. And they didn't need to be in an institution to experience those things. And in actuality, there was a suppression.
And this is why it's important, you know, and it's really uncomfortable, but look at the dynamics. And I want to bring something up in a minute concerning that. While women have been used to run all of the institutions, the wealth, the control, and the power over humanity that has been exercised on the planet has been exercised by hybrid European men belonging to secret societies, and some of the Aboriginal people who were assigned in degrees of their little society clubs, etc., that actually have taken all the credit, all the wealth, and through the psychosis of the very operations that women were funding and paying tithe to, were actually designed to suppress the matriarchy.
Absolutely.
And that's not, and the interesting thing is that's not, it's not hard to recognize that, even with a little bit of research. You don't even have to do any what you would call deep research to see that these institutions have never served the best interests of women, and yet women have funded them. And this is back to why, when you get into subject matters like this, it becomes so controversial, because people don't want to acknowledge their own hypocrisy. Whether it originated from fear, which was promoted, if you get the point, which is why a lot of people go to these institutions, not because they really have a grounded knowledge of both the history and the scripture. They're good at puppeting, if you get the point, or, you know, how do you say, you know, like repeating what they hear without examining what they're saying, and not recognizing that upon examination that the ancient books don't correlate with the propagation that's promoted in the name of the old books, etc. And very often, just like on the article I just read from the lesson book, right? how many women that and we're addressing the mothers now, although it's deal with the sons, because remember, we're raised by women, so therefore when you say that, you're talking the nation. When you're talking nativity, you're talking the nation, male and female. So how many women even know or knew what the word church means? Doesn't mean that it's a negative, that they don't even know what the word means. How many women, just like when I read it in this lesson, Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed, how many women, whether they're listening to this conversation on the House of Reawakening Minds, or whether they're listening to other channels, or whether they're going to these places, how many women know the official name of Christianity is the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed? Just as an example, that's the official name. They don't. Most of them don't know that. Why is it that the priesthood, who are usually running the game, don't tell them that? Because it will become obvious that these people have been worshiping Constantine and not the Jesus that they've been talking to. That's the reason why priests will not speak across those pulpits the official name of the Constantine order or Nicene Creed, i.e., the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed of Constantine, but they'll just say Christianity, and then they'll tag the password Jesus on it. And people have taken it that Jesus is the founder of the Constantine Creed, while at the same time saying he's a Jew. And then not explaining the origin of Jew, and that word doesn't even mean what they think it means. And that's an iteration of Saba, a cover up again on its own right. And this stuff is not hard to find out for anybody that that does any research. But my the point that I'm making, or the charge that I'm making to the priesthood, is that they know that they have deceived the masses, and they know that they have built massive wealth at the expense of our people, and they know that they have convinced women and have taken advantage of women who have been under the spell to fund all of these institutions to their own detriment, and will dare not say that they've been collecting tithing for Constantine order and not for Jesus. Now that's a fact, absolute fact, easily proven. And again, as you already know, Dr. Nayola, it's most of the time when we even get into anything that helps to really raise the consciousness of the people, you'll get trolls that come out of the woodworks like roaches. However, we're coming into a cycle right now where as fast as the trolls come out, other truths will come out that will expose them. So a lot of these keys that we've been dropping on the people will, the troll will come out and the truth will come out and start liberating the people. And what we want the people, and particularly our mothers, to recognize is to look at these things that we're bringing note to, because the quicker you become conscious, the quicker you'll be reattached to your divine sovereign mind. That has nothing to do with the political realm. It has to do with your divinity. But until that sincerity arises with them, the grand, or what you call the great mother, or the cosmic mother, or the source, Allah, does not aid. It's sort of like you've got to take one of the keys, and we've always said this, that our people really need to comprehend, is sincerity. That's when nature kicks in to help you. We can do a lot of things ritually and fund it, make beautiful buildings and everything. But if sincerity is not there, nature or divine is not there. And that's important. And I think because we've been groomed to these ritual building things and thinking that we have special gods that are there and nowhere else, as long as that mentality is there, destruction follows it.
Yeah, and I wanted to, I've noticed that, for instance, like Netflix and was it Prime Videos, they've been putting out over the last few years lots of movies. Now I realize, now I wasn't paying attention, but a lot of these so-called ancient, like the thing I was looking at today, ancient type movies of warriors, and you see the women, and they're starting to mix the Aboriginal woman in with it, but even as queens and so forth, you're starting to put it in a little bit where they've largely always had, the ambiance. Yeah.
See, because the exposures on many levels are coming out. It's sort of like, it's like this, where some people might look at these different things that they're doing as them arriving to some kind of moral consciousness or some ethical position. The people need to know that that's not the motive. The motive is that they know that the timeline or the dimensional shifts are closer, and humanity by nature, not by the priesthood, are ascending. And all you need is roughly around 10% of the beings to be on a path of what we call ascension, which is also referred to as consciousness, for the institutions which are built on blind faith to collapse, because they only live on the energy of the people.
Absolutely.
The people don't know they don't know that they are the power. The priesthood never wanted the people to know that the power is them. They also don't want the people to know that all of the trinkets that they've been presenting to you in the name of artificial intelligence, etc., is actually in your DNA. That's why they don't want people to take serious what they have tagged. Notice that the priesthood have tagged your 90 some odd % DNA inactive as junk DNA, is because that's where the divinity, not unlike, like when you read the Circle 7 Quran and you read chapter 1 and it talks about the seed. Man is the seed of Allah cast into the soil of earth, etc., and the soil of soul. That's really telling you the dimensional being. And as that seed would sprout, etc., so will we sprout and are sprouting now that you've come into the energy of the Aquarian lights. And so the priesthood, when they talk about the Piscean age, they know that the Piscean age was the fertile millennia for the priesthood to do their dirty work. And that the Aquarian light, or what they call the coming of the Aquarian age, is what they refer to the return of Jesus. And of course, Jesus symbolizes justice. And so when Jesus come again, which is harmonic with the Son of God, i.e. the Aquarian lights, or what they call the hidden sun, etc., that all things that were created or maintained or constructed in the Piscean era that they refer to as the third dimensional paradigm, by virtue of nature, begins to collapse. And so a lot of these priests or scholars are exposing these things in stories only to get ahead of history, because they know they're going to have to answer to these people, because it's not going to be unraveling like over some period of time where they can mitigate this, because it takes place over a few generations. Because most people that are informed now will be informed as the transition takes place, which we're in right now. That's why a lot of them are talking. They're not talking because they're moral or because all of a sudden their conscience got them. Is because they are caught. Not, and another thing, and I won't speak, on it, because I don't want to smear anybody one way or another. But if you notice that when Beyonce did her new song about Church Girl, and you've seen all these bishops and priests all of a sudden making all these videos condemning Beyonce as if she's the source of the troubles of the world, which one of them have placed any proof of information that anything that she said was a lie? That's just putting it up to you to think about. Why is it that all of the social problems that have been befalling women, about them being genocided, about all the missing women up in Canada, that policemen were taking under fake causes, and have been genociding out, which is also being exposed now recently. And all of the years that they've been pretending to love women and be caring about women, and they've actually been using their issue that came out of their wombs for other purposes than what people thought, including both food, organs, industry, and other things. But all of a sudden they're concerned about Beyonce song. How about nobody wants to get into the book of Leviticus in that Bible, but yet many of them same priests are violating Leviticus in that Bible. But they won't get into that, but they want to find fault with Beyonce's song. Awesome. Now, y'all know the part that I'm talking about in Leviticus, so I'm not saying it because you already know that the priesthood will start shutting our channels down. You know, it's a lot. The point that I'm making is this. Women need to step up. And I'm appreciative of Mother Callie for being one of the brave mothers to step out and put her words to the script. You know how, like Drew Ali always say, in order to change the people, you must change their literature. Look how many people take on a whole bunch of titles and have produced nothing. But they all of a sudden they got something to say when somebody's out there in the field getting their hands dirty, really doing the work. And you'll see a lot of these people with these titles all of a sudden got something to say. Other than that, you ain't never heard nothing from them. Except when they asking you for tithe.
The other thing she covers in this book is the rise of the Ethiopian king, Cephas, which is the new North Star, which is in direct opposition to the so-called ascension to the throne of the so-called King Charles, or whatever the guy's name is.
And you know that the truth of the matter is all kings are assigned by the queen. So this proxy operations that has ceased and now made public is a signal of whether it's among themselves battling for power, recognizing that this thing is transiting, whether the common people are aware of it or not. The window's open for you to start reclaiming your lost estate. When it closes, all those who are left in the third dimension, we're going to have to deal with that. You either going to ascend or not. But the choice is yours. This is the reason why they've made such effort to control the narrative, because the people themselves have to condemn themselves, or they have to willingly ascend. And you know the old adage, and this is why it's always been promoted among the people to blame their shortcomings on, quote unquote, the devil. This is so that people won't take responsibility when this window opened, which it has done, to start taking charge of their life. I, self, law, am master. And people need to comprehend why we've been telling you that.
Mama Callie's calling it Juneteenth 2.0.
Exactly. And the real deal, even when you do the research on Juneteenth, the date and the operation was both a fraud. And it gave the people something to preoccupy their mind with and gave them what you call false hope. Anybody that does the research find out the Juneteenth operations was a psyop. And I know a lot of people are upset because they like to think of themselves as being conscious. It was a distraction. It was a psyop. The date was false and the action was false. Now, that's true. Do some research.
No, I think when she was talking about it, she's talking about
I know her intention.
in terms of, like you don't know that you're free. And here you are sitting around still wondering and begging about how you're going to get free instead of walking out of this situation.
But that's the psyop.
Right.
The false hope is always measuring your action by what the hybrid present to you. See, every time he presents the jurisdiction, he has control. He keeps tossing them new apples, and they keep biting. And this is again, even Doc, as you've seen over the years, why when I said to you before, say 7, 8 years ago, something like that, some of the critics, the greatest critics that had nothing to say, as soon as people around the country and outside the country start activating consular court, all of a sudden, some of your greatest critics was whom?
More.
People who should have been telling them that a long time ago. Because of their own failure to do that, they had to condemn it. Why? They didn't expect it to catch on among the common people. But what did it do? It created problems for the judicial systems of the Circle Church and Chancery that before that time was stayed hidden in England. When the people thought that the United States was a country and that the judicial system was run literally from the states. And because of the writs and the instruments and the cognizance of the people was beginning to take root in their counter activities and their averments of jurisdiction to the corporate court system, etc., all of the other systems became exposed by virtue of them countering it, which was the intent. It was a chess move. We know that these people weren't going to honor anything, but the people needed to get active because the window is short.
That's right. And
they don't know it because they're out of sequence with nature. Their concepts is built in dogma systems. It's not built in true religion. It's built in dogma systems. Therefore, they have no respect for cosmo operations. They don't have any respect for the cosmos.
But if they want to know what's been done to us, a great example, and you had the original movie of this, always comes back to mind when you're talking about how they've been sucking the energy, is the Dark Crystal. If you have not seen the Dark Crystal,
telling you bluntly,
go to Netflix. It came out in 2019. It's 10 episodes. You must look at it. I know they're Muppets, but don't look at it as Muppets. Look at them as I think it's the Skeksis and the other group is two groups, and one is it's the few against the many.
The Gelfins
and the Gelfins and the Skeksis, and the Gelfins are us.
And you'll notice that the crystal is a pyramid
and an energy source that they need, and it's not a lot of them. They're sucking it out of everybody else and scaring them.
And
which
you'll
is what
see that the Skeksis is a hybrid monster.
Yeah, and that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
It's what we're dealing with. The Dark Crystal. You need to check it out on Netflix.
Yeah, and it killed Jim Henson not long after that. That became popular.
Right. It's just it's what is going on today. So many have, now you look back and say, oh, that's what they were saying.
I had the original tape, and it's a collector's item now, and you can't find them too much. You can't find it too much.
Oh, but I got the message from the Netflix version. I was like, I saw it immediately.
If you know anything about the walk of man, and you see the Dark Crystal, it becomes obvious that they're talking to you.
Right.
But you already know also that the priesthood do that to reduce their karmic response on themselves. Because keep in mind, and again, like we said before, a lot of people will respond when some of these things are exposed or revealed, and we'll say, well, why do they tell us the truth about this and that and that? Why do they tell them on themselves? They need to understand that they're dealing with nature law. They're not really dealing with the consciousness relative to the people who they're extorting. They're dealing with the laws of nature that knows, because they know that it doesn't recognize person or station, and that when you're dealing with cause and effect, and reciprocity, that operates in nature. And so when you see a lot of them tell the truth, that's why they'll code it so that people don't immediately get it.
Right.
So that after a while, you'll see people who start looking at comic books and movies. As one person was talking to me the other day and was talking about, remember the movie with Will Smith? And and he's from Philadelphia too. And remember, and that guy said to him, "You look like a handsome black Moor." He was trying to tell a lot of people they're Moors. So they got that off. So the deal of it is they still told the people, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
They tagged it with black, though, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
But they told people in the Moor, didn't they? Oh, same thing with Martin Lawrence with the Black Knight.
Right.
Same thing with Morgan Freeman, Robin Hood. Same thing with Anthony Hopkins with that movie. What was it? True Romance or True Lies? Or
Just recently,
they
Saturday Night Live did a thing, and I played that little segment, and they they dropped a Moorish, little piece in there, So
they don't hide it, but people need to know it's because of their knowledge. See, this is what people need to comprehend. Just because the hybrid Europeans uses dark Babylonian magic against the people, don't mean that Babylonia is evil. See, this is the whole point. That's why they do
but
things.
Babylon has been portrayed as evil.
But Babylon is the label for the dark magic or the misuse. This is why the queen that they claim died, do the research, is everything she did was Babylonian, but it was dark.
So she was on the left-hand path.
People need to understand higher self, lower self. They need to know the fall. That's why the fall is shameful. But the rise of the glory is you evolving out of the depths of hell.
Did we teach them? We taught them our ways, and they just corrupted it.
And yes, that's true. That's true. This is why you'll see. Oh, let me show you an example. Let me show you an example. This is from the album Rock and Star, right? This is from 2001, right? My article on Astarte, etc. I think it's in this one. It may be in others. And I'm going to show you what's right in Washington, D.C. And this is, again, why a lot of people who really don't know the history, will look at the Fez as being the negative, not knowing that it belongs to them and that the hybrid European wears it because he's conquered you. It's called Tierra Sol. It's not his. That's his crown of conquest. That's why on the seven hills of Rome, that all of their masters and past masters wear your crown symbolically in all Oddfellows, Eastern Star, Daughters of the American Revolution. They wear your crown as a symbol of conquest. It doesn't belong to them. And our people, when they see it, they say, oh, that's that Mason stuff and stuff. That's your daggone crown. They corrupted everything, and they do everything by proxy. Everything they do by proxy. I know it's in one of these papers. So
we're running out of time. We started a half hour earlier today. For those of you who came in at 7:30, we actually started at 7 p.m. because Grand Sheik needs to get out of here really quick. So we needed to start early. So we will be ending promptly at 9 p.m. But we apologize for anybody that didn't get the updated time when we changed the time. But we didn't want to cancel altogether because time is really pressing for something that he has to do. So, just please, bear with us. Go back and look at the replay. And he's trying to find that. I'm not sure.
Now, look at this.
Okay.
This is at Washington, D.C., right?
Okay. Back up a little bit. Yeah.
That's hybrid Europeans wearing your crown at the Maghreb. They're the rulers.
Yeah. And go back.
That's in the background.
Lift up. Yeah.
That you don't see.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to notice on this fence, right? Islam. Bay. Muslim.
Wow.
Do you understand? In secret, they got all the books, and they conquered the Maghreb, and they're wearing your crown. That's in George Washington Memorial, and the stones that built that building, rose granite is brought from Connecticut. And this is when you'll see a lot of the history of the European conquest here, and you'll hear them talking a lot about Connecticut. And then symbolically, right here in the middle, you see George Washington chopping down the Moorish flag. That's chopping down the cherry tree.
Yeah.
That's at Washington, D.C. How come your so-called leaders don't tell you this stuff? What they'll do is tell you that the Fez is evil, rather than tell you that the hybrids conquered you, took your crown, and have been conquering the world in your name. That's why they call their corporation a country. And that's why the masses think that America is a country. America's a continent. Was conquered by hybrid Europeans under unum sanctum operations, and it's the United States of America Corporation Trading Company, which is why we showed you their corporation papers. This is again why, as they're being dismantled, why the Pope wrote that letter to Barack H. Obama. And also why your so-called leaders don't read that letter to you publicly, because it tells both the history and the politics. But all of this collectively together, it's important for women to be aware of this, because it'll change their frame of mind of the politics. No different than I was coming down here, and they got these women walking around Philadelphia with these folders and tablets, getting people to sign up to vote for their own enslavement, for the corporation to continue, which went bankrupt and is dead, went into receivership 2019. Then they put this thing on these people 2019, which I wrote. I was sending down these little notes in early 2019. Many of you got telling them that they were going to start taking your toilet paper, which they did as a test. And then they've been doing all this stuff to you. And they're trying to get these people to rebond themselves. This stuff is it's on the surface, but we have the unfortunate reality that many of our women still don't get the reality of the politics. Therefore, we need women to get together who are ready to really start reversing this, because this is both a spiritual and aggregate physical dimensional war. And you need your intuitive mind, and you need to give up all of the idol god crap that you've been bought into, because that's when nature will come in full force. However, the other reality is, and this is the reality, that while people have been procrastinating in their responsibility to themselves, the world is moving on, and the priesthood are working overtime to kill as many of our people off as they possibly can. Procrastination is not something that you should be maintaining. That only worked in the Piscean energy. It does not work and cannot work under Aquarian energy. Can't.
It cannot. Wow. So we do apologize for those of you who had questions. We don't have a lot of time, as I said just a few minutes ago, because Grand Sheik has to get right out of here, we will try to make it up on the next go round. Appreciate everybody, but the women are ready. See down here on the rolling across the screen, if you're interested in being a part of the war and sharpening and opening up your
heart chakra mainly.
Well, I want to say what you came in here with.
Oh yeah.
Reconnecting those disconnected DNA strands and getting back to being able to use all of your faculties. Then that's what the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. And then, we got some stuff in us that's lying dormant.
Everything that they have been showing you technologically and hiding from you technologically, which is ancient, is actually locked up in your DNA. That means all of these trinkets that we've been trained to use, that they're trying to see, what they're trying to do is do this transhumanism thing to lock you out from source. That's the real truth. And the real deal, it is your DNA that they've called junk, where your actual high spiritual evolution is locked in. It's not even outside of you, it's actually within. However, you have to come to a state of mind, a vibrational state of mind to activate it. And you're in like Mother Kali says, you're in a window, and it's a cosmic window. So it's not something that's regulated by man. So look for also some of the hybrid Europeans, because of them being out of sequence and trying to get ahead of history. They will be reintroducing or reactivating the old Egyptian calendar, and to bring the timeline back into order, because the people don't know that they're approximately roughly 13 and a half, 14 years out of cycle.
I
As
thought
far
it was like 500 years or something.
Yeah, no, well, we're not talking about that. Well, you're true. But we're dealing with the operational, cosmic operation of the calendar, not just a 500-year cycle of the setback. But we're talking about its sequence of accuracy. So that would place even the Mayan calendar, which is harmonic with the ancient Asiatic calendars, is basically correct, but still slightly out of sequence. So what's going to happen in the near future is hybrid Europeans seeing, because remember, they're not under the spookiness that they put the world under. They're going to be exposing a lot of things to try to save themselves. So in the process, watch what they do. Because I'm telling you what they're going to do. They're going to start exposing the truth about the modifications of the calendar. And we're talking about a sequential construct. We're not just talking about just a date, just immediate date of the roughly 500-year cycle.
Yeah.
And as far as also with them creating the dogma system to put humanity in forced servitude, they'll admit to over 500 years, but you can really deal with thousands, a couple thousand. That's the truth.
Listen, we got to go, y'all. We want you to get, sisters and brothers, but mainly sisters, please get this book, Global Transformation, the Rise of the Feminine Power and the Ascension of the Ethiopian King. Because if you're joining the war, you're gonna need this book. It's like our war. It's like our war manual. I got it on the screen, but you can get it from Amazon. Hold up, let me take this off because Grand Sheik's holding up the actual book. So you want to get the book. You want to get it on Amazon, and you want to see the number that's going up at the bottom of the screen. Text WAR. Make sure you have your name and your email address so we can put you on the list, so you'll be connected and contacted for our meetings and the things that we're going to do. So if you're interested, don't put WAR here in the you can put it here if you do in the comments, but I'm not going to see it. You need to text. So here's the number. We have got to go. We absolutely love you. But today is one of those days we wanted to get those 2 hours in.
Mm-hmm.
But
Islam and peace.
Islam and peace. So we want to thank you. Thank you for supporting the House of Reawakening Minds. Again, we still are going to give that list up of all the volunteers that were here a couple weeks ago. I miss them so much. Got to get them back again. We have a couple more things we need to do, but we thank you.
It's almost like as soon as we get ready to do something, another little comes on it.
Something else we got to do. But we appreciate y'all, and keep supporting our advertisers and the house. And Moabitess, listen, we in the glory of the rise right now. So so let's rise. Let's rise. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Peace.
The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living the lie I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds.